After a long hiatus, we're revisiting how Jordan Meadows is doing as he prepares for his sophomore year at Stanford. Jam had to re-earn his starting spot, and after the performance he put on in practice, he did just that. And Stanford and Jordan were taking on Hawaii in a night game week 1 of the season in Hawaii. Last season didn't go as planned for Stanford. They ran into a buzzsaw of 3 top 5 teams in 4 weeks, including winning one of them against their rival Notre Dame, which was probably the highlight of Jordan's freshman year, along with winning an all-ACC freshman nod. Stanford and Jordan missed making a bowl game, and that was a major focus all offseason. One big change in the offseason too was that Ayo Manor, Stanford's best receiver, transferred. Jordan remained committed to developing as a dual-threat receiving back, and the team would need to rely on his impact in the passing game more so than ever before. But Hawaii was doing a good job of disrupting Jordan's timing on his routes. Jordan punched in a rushing TD in the 4th to tie the game, and it was time for the defense to do their job. Hawaii milked the clock and scored a touchdown with about 40 seconds left. With 20 seconds left on 4th and 12, Stanford got desperate, and Jordan called for the ball, which got intercepted near midfield, and Hawaii ended up stealing the game. Jordan was in his dorm staring at his laptop screen. His sophomore year was in full swing, but it wasn't just about football anymore. Sure, football was what brought him here. It's what got him to the 5-star ranking, the scholarship, and all the eyes of the nation looking at him. But there's so much more swirling around in his head, things he didn't expect to weigh on him so heavily. To start week 2, in his game against Florida, during pregame, Jordan's phone buzzed. It was a message from his dad, Zach Meadows. Just a simple, "Proud of you, son. Keep pushing." His dad has always been supportive, but lately it feels a little bit more complicated. Growing up, Zach was his rock, his football coach, his mentor. But now, as Jordan gets older, he's realizing how different the two are. Florida went on to crush Stanford in week 2, and dreams of making the college football playoffs evaporated right then. Getting back to Jordan's dynamic with his Hall of Fame running back father, Zach splits his time between California and Virginia, working with military officers when he's not coaching back home. Jordan's never been interested in following the family military tradition, and that's always been a point of tension, though they don't really talk about it directly. The distance between them, physically and emotionally, sometimes feels bigger than the miles separating California from Virginia. Still, there's no denying the respect that Jordan has for his father. Zach's advice sticks with him, especially in moments of doubt, but sometimes Jordan wonders if his dad sees him as his own person or just a smaller, younger version of himself. In week 3, despite the fumble, Jordan Meadows and Stanford took care of business. They had a 17-0 lead midway through the 3rd quarter, and Jordan was just ripping off big run after big run, still trying to work on his juke moves, and eventually got to the point where San Jose State did score a touchdown, but now Stanford was just milking the clock, and finally Stanford pulled out their first one of the season in game number 3. North Carolina was unranked, but they shouldn't be underestimated with a 3-1 record given the struggles that Stanford has had up to this point in the season. Jordan's mom, Asa, has always been the quieter one in the family, but she's the one that he calls when things get heavy. She's back home in California, running her own small business and keeping an eye on his younger half-brother Zacchaeus, who's about to graduate high school in Atlanta, but came to visit his extended family in California. Asa's not in the whole football thing the way that Zach is. She's more interested in making sure Jordan's happy, healthy, and doing something that makes him feel fulfilled. Every now and then, Jordan misses her cooking and the comfort of her steady advice. Something about her calm voice just grounds him. But bro wouldn't be needing any support after this game, the way he was dusting Carolina's defense.
Hey, old man, give me everything.
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me.
Jordan had one more big play off the catch and run, play action, getting the ball, taking it up the field to seal the deal with a 21-10 lead in the 3rd quarter. Not to say that Carolina didn't make it interesting in the end, as the final score was 21-18, and Stanford had somewhat recovered from the 0-2 start. Life in the dorms has its ups and downs. You'd think that by now, Jordan would be out living on his own with all that NIL money flying around, but he liked living with his friend. Mike, Jordan's roommate and linebacker friend from Texas, was still his best friend on campus, but things had been weird lately. Over the summer, Mike's parents went through a rough divorce, and he hadn't been the same since. He'd been withdrawing, missing hangouts, and keeping to himself more often than ever before. They used to joke around after practice, crank up the music in their dorm, and hit up the student center for late-night snacks. Now, there's this underlying tension Jordan can't figure out how to address. Every time he tries to check in, Mike just brushes him off with a, "Nah, I'm good, bro." But Jordan can tell that he's not. One night after practice, they're both lying in their beds, and Jordan hears Mike sigh deeply. "You ever feel like nothing you do is good enough?" Mike mutters. And Jordan was caught off guard. "I mean, yeah, man, all the time." Mike turns over into his bed. I just don't know, man. My dad, football, school, it feels like I'm juggling too much, and I'm dropping everything." For the first time in a while, Mike let him in. Jordan didn't have all the answers, but he knew that he could be there for his friend. "I get it, dude. Sometimes I feel the same way, but you're not dropping everything. You're still here. You're still fighting through it. It's not a solution, but it's progress. And for now, that's enough." Jordan and Stanford took a pounding from Pitt metaphorically that set them back again with another loss. Jordan wasn't a bad guy, but he wasn't used to sharing his inner feelings with his friends like Mike. These things went unspoken in the Meadows household. So it was draining for Jordan to help his roommate out, and after the team fell flat on their face against Pitt, he needed some time to relax, but he got a text from his academic advisor letting him know that he had basically failed all his midterms with D's and F's. Jordan was stressing over this after his freshman year came so easy to him academically. Right when Jordan was about to sit down to get back on track with his schoolwork, he got a call from Zacchaeus. Over in Atlanta, things are heating up for Zacchaeus, Jordan's younger brother. Zacchaeus, a star high school quarterback, is starting to feel the pressure that Jordan knows all too well. Every time they FaceTime, Zacchaeus complains about how everyone expects him to be perfect like Jordan. The comparison eats at him, even though Jordan has tried to make it clear that he's always in his brother's corner. "Bro, I'm not you," Zacchaeus says one night over the phone. His frustrations are clear. "Everyone keeps talking about how I gotta be the next Meadows on the field, but I don't even know if I want that." Jordan leans back in his desk chair, staring at his screen. "You don't have to be me, Z. Do what makes you happy. Forget what everyone else wants." It's easy advice to give, but harder to follow. Jordan knows how tough it is to ignore expectations, especially when they're tied to your family name. The pressure to live up to his dad's legacy, and now apparently the expectations his own success sets for Zacchaeus, is something that never really goes away. Jordan tries to keep reminding Zacchaeus that it's okay to carve his own path, but deep down, he wonders if he's even taking his own advice. The win against Miami carried mixed emotions. Jordan and Stanford knocked off a 3-3 top 10 team, but immediately after the game, he was hit with a message from his academic advisor warning him that he was close to academic suspension, which would sideline him from the team. Stanford was at least 3-3 at this point, and Jordan's stats were better on average compared to his freshman season. Seeing that progress did liven up Jordan's spirits a bit amidst all the things that were nagging at him. The team felt like it was moving in the right direction, righting the ship after an 0-2 start when they matched up against a formidable 5-2 Virginia squad. It was nice to come to Virginia and know that his dad, Zach, was watching the game in the stands, but it was a struggle fest for Jordan and the team. In the third quarter, Jordan was laid out by a Virginia backer, forcing him to fumble and injuring him after an unremarkable game. Somehow, Stanford held on to win the game and improved to a winning record for the first time in over a year. Jordan continued to develop as a player, and in Week 8, Stanford got a chance to rematch against SMU, who was ranked top 5 last year at the time that they played. Jordan started out the game hot with a few nice outside run concepts the coach schemed up for him, but it didn't end up translating into points, as on 3rd and 4, SMU sent a blitz at Ashton Daniels, and Jam tried his best to block 5 guys at once, but Daniels couldn't find an open receiver and got sacked. The game was getting ugly early as Jordan got stuffed on his first rush and later fumbled the ball after being hit in the backfield to give SMU the ball up 10 on the Stanford 20-yard line. Jordan did have another breakaway run in the second quarter, which was immediately forgotten about as Ashton Daniels threw a pick 6 the next play to go down 20-0 against SMU. Jordan fumbled the ball again with SMU recovering at the Stanford 40, and this game looked like it was over. While Jordan was recovering from the hit, Stanford somehow ripped off 21 straight points, and it was starting to be concerning the amount that Stanford's offense was scoring without Jordan on the field. Jordan had one more meaningful catch with a minute left and down 5 before being pulled off the field, and Ashton Daniels capped the drive with a game-clinching touchdown, an absolutely insane comeback for Stanford. The following game was at home, and Stanford had a crazy amount of momentum to the point that some reporters picked the Cardinals over number 7 ranked Florida State, but the Seminoles had other plans as they shut down the Stanford offense all game, and Jordan had only one nice run after the catch to speak about in the game. Florida State had an easy W, 23-7. With only 3 games left in the season, Stanford needed just one win to go to a bowl game. Being a sophomore is weird. Freshman year was hard. He expected that, but this year, Jordan thought he'd have it more together. He's struggling to balance school, practice, and his personal life, and the pressure was starting to get to him. His grades had slipped, not by much, but enough that he was getting emails from the academic advisor. His mom didn't know yet, and Jordan's trying to keep it that way. Then there's the whole student-athlete life. The schedule was brutal, early morning workouts, classes, practice, film sessions, and then somehow finding energy to study. There were days where Jordan just wanted to collapse into bed and never get up. It was already common knowledge that Jordan's grades had been slipping consistently since his freshman year because of the intensity of his daily schedule. In one of his few quiet moments, Jordan sat alone at the library flipping through his econ textbook, and his professor, Dr. Fennell, noticed that Jordan's distracted look, and he decided to take a seat next to him. He said, "You okay, Jordan? You've been off lately." Jordan chuckled awkwardly. "Just a lot going on, you know, football, classes, everything." And then Dr. Fennell nodded. "You're not just an athlete, Jordan. You're a student. You've got a lot of potential in and out of the stadium. Don't forget about that." It's one of those comments that lingers even after the conversation ends, and Jordan's dad talks a lot about football, but Dr. Fennell is one of the few people who talks to him about what comes next, life beyond college ball. And Jordan isn't sure what that looks like yet, but he's starting to realize he can't let football be the only thing that defines him. As sophomore year pressed on, Jordan realized that football wasn't the only game that he was playing anymore. Life was throwing him curveballs in the form of strained friendships, family pressure, and the constant question of what's next. He's still figuring it out day by day. Even though there are moments when it feels like the weight of everything might be too much, Jordan knows that he is not in it alone. Between the phone calls with his mom, the late night talks with Mike, and the random moments of clarity from professors like Dr. Fennell, Jordan's learning that success isn't just about touchdowns or grades. It's about finding your path even when it feels like you're walking in somebody else's footsteps. And for now though, Jordan's just trying to enjoy the ride, even if he doesn't know exactly where it's headed. After all, figuring out who you are is what college is all about. And this rivalry game against Cal was the perfect opportunity to figure out what Jordan and Stanford were made of. Jordan and Stanford had clawed their way back to have the chance to tie the game with a 2-point conversion with a minute remaining, and Jordan knew he was getting the ball on a fake jet sweep. The O-line got bullied. Jordan escaped a D tackle, put a move on the backer in the B gap, cut back right, and just barely got tackled short of getting into the end zone. And this was their opportunity to make a bowl game. Stanford was on a 3-game slide, and their last game of the season was against number 3 Notre Dame, who clearly wanted revenge for what happened last season. As the season progressed, and the weight of expectations settled heavily on Jordan's shoulders, the thought of transferring started to creep into his mind. Stanford, with all its prestige and opportunities, wasn't feeling like the right fit anymore, and the football program was struggling, and the balance between academics and athletics was becoming overwhelming for Jordan. The dream he had once had of building his legacy at Stanford started to feel distant and almost completely unreachable. One late night, after another grueling practice, Jordan sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his phone, and his dad's name was highlighted on the screen, his thumb hovering over the call button. He needed advice, but asking Zach Meadows, his father, the legend, about the possibility of leaving Stanford, that was something that he couldn't take lightly. Zach had always pushed him to be resilient, to tough things out, even when Zach himself had transferred during college. But this felt different. It wasn't just about football anymore, it was about figuring out where he truly belonged. Notre Dame ended up scoring back-to-back touchdowns with under 2 minutes left to seal the game in a similar fashion to how Stanford had done it the previous year, and Stanford would miss a bowl game after being 5-3. After the game, Jordan got a text from his academic advisor telling him he received an F and 3 Ds for his final exams. After a deep breath, Jordan made the call to his dad, Zach Meadows.